Price. Something's wrong in Verdansk. They're targeting their own. We need to find out why.
Call of Duty's worst kept secret, its battle royale mode Warzone, has finally been released, and after spending a fair few hours playing it with friends, randoms, and even by myself, I have some opinions. So join me, Ian Higton, as I give you my first impressions on this brand new mode and tell you about 5 things I liked about Call of Duty Warzone and 4 things I didn't. Oh, and while you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe and stuff. Thanks!
Clear to engage all targets.
Okay, point 1. Now, I know a big part of Warzone is about teamwork, what with it having mandatory 3-person squads and all, but honestly, some of my most thrilling times with the game have been when I've been playing it solo. And by solo, I normally mean joining up with some random duos who then ignore my pings,
Your teammates done in. They're returning to base.
respawning said duos when they die because they've not been listening to my pings, watching them go off on their own again instead of listening to my pings,
This way, moving.
seeing them get knocked once again by enemies that could have been easily avoided if they'd been listening to my pings, and then having them leave the match in a huff as I go out of my way to try and reach them for another revive.
Target locked. Go for strike.
Thanks a lot, DJ Perky Nips. Going through all of that rigmarole for what amounted to absolutely nothing was frustrating, sure, but once my teammates had gone, I had nothing to worry about but my own self-preservation, and this was a bit of a game changer for me. With such a huge map and player count, there's so much potential for bumping into enemies around every corner. Coupled with the varied locations in the map, which will have you fighting street to street 1 minute, then engaging in sniper duels in the hills the next, I suddenly felt like I was in my own action movie. Sure, the odds were stacked against me, but the tension caused a huge adrenaline spike, and I'd racked up 8 kills by the time I eventually died. My favourite moment came when, on top of everything else, I was suddenly the target of an enemy bounty.
You're being tracked by an enemy team. Stay sharp.
Bounties are collectible items which you can find on the battlefield, and these alert you to a random target close by, whom you must hunt down and kill.
Bounty target is up. Let's get it done.
Do this and you receive some big bonuses, so it's well worth doing, but being on the receiving end of a bounty is pretty scary, especially if you're on your own like I was in this match. I had a choice: hunker down and try to defend myself, or try to put as much distance as I could between me and my hunters, who were able to track my approximate location on the map. After a quick scan of my immediate surroundings, I spotted a tactical rover, so I legged it for that and then sped away to a new spot underneath the airport. Once there, I found a nice little spot to hide and held my breath as I watched the timer ticking down. As the timer hit about 20 seconds left, I started to feel pretty happy with myself, but then suddenly my pursuers were right next to me. I cacked myself, fired some shots in panic, and then I ran. I felt a little bit like Bruce Willis in Die Hard at this point, hunted by overwhelming odds but surviving by the skin of my teeth. After the timer ran out, though, I knew that my pursuers couldn't see me on the map anymore, and that's when I decided to go from hunted to hunter, which ended with this lovely team wipe. Long story short, the gigantic scale of this game has the ability to create some truly epic moments, even if you're playing solo. So don't rage quit just because your friends do, because you might miss out on some of your very own die-hard moments. One of the things I really like about Warzone is its multiple respawn systems and how they make you work for your chance to come back into the battleground. Hurriedly scavenging your way through buildings in order to rustle up enough cash to buy your mates back from a buy station changes the dynamic of the game from a last-person standing shooter to a survival looter, and this amps up the tension in a way that elevates it from the standard team respawns in something like, I don't know, Apex or Cuisine Royale.
Wake me up! Back to life! Wake up!
You see, it's not just a case of taking a thing to a thing here. If you don't have enough cash on you, you'll need to go building to building, searching, looting, and then sneaking your way to a buy station that's hopefully not surrounded by foes. To me, all the tension made this process feel a little bit like playing Factions, the multiplayer mode from The Last of Us, except without all the crafting and all the shivving and... Look, I said a little bit, okay? This approach makes you appreciate your teammates a hell of a lot more if they manage to pull it off, but your ability to respawn isn't always down to them. The other way to bring yourself back to life is to take part in a 1v1 match in the Gulag. Do or die in the first 2/3 of the match and you'll end up here, in the prison's Gulag, spectating fights between other players, lobbing rocks at them and dodging punches from your fellow spectators. At some point though, it'll be your turn to enter the Gulag, and here it's a swift fight to the death, or flag capture, between you and one other player. Die here and you're completely out of the game until your teammates can afford to buy you back, but win and you'll earn yourself an immediate revival onto the battleground. This method is not only a great way to keep things interesting for you if you're killed mid-game, oh no, working for survival in this way also makes you appreciate your revival a lot more, because you yourself have earned it through spilling your enemy's blood in trial by combat.
Target locked. Go.
As more and more Battle Royale games come out, you can recognise more and more elements in them that have been blatantly stolen or borrowed from other IPs. I actually quite enjoy this mishmash of stolen elements in Warzone though, as the game has borrowed some of the best bits from quite a few other titles. For instance, you've got the Apex Legends style drop mechanics with a jump master and smoke trails so you can easily spot where other teams are headed. There's the replaceable armor plate system, which has been shamelessly plundered from Battlefield Firestorm, and there's even a little bit of Fortnite in here, thanks to your ability to quickly switch from gliding to falling and back again for more precise drops onto the battlefield.
Primary objective is to kill them all.
Obviously, there's also the signature Call of Duty gunplay here, which feels proper meaty, and it all comes together to create one very exciting whole. My only real disappointment here is that they didn't also steal Cuisine Royale's ritual system so that players could call in a zombie apocalypse every so often. I mean, just look how cool this is. There's fucking loads of them. They're chasing a guy over there. There's a player running away over there.
This is Plunder. Here's the lay of the land.
If you do want to try out Warzone, don't skip over the secondary game mode, Plunder, because it's actually really fun, especially if you're a natural-born loot hoover, like me. Plunder removes the shrinking gas ring and lets players battle it out across the entire Verdansk map in a bid to get the most money possible. Cash can be found on the floor, in loot crates, on enemy players you've killed, and occasionally it'll even rain onto the battlefield via PUBG-style airdrops. The more money you have, the more of a target you paint on your back, and if you're suitably in the lead, your approximate location will appear on your enemy's minimap, meaning they'll be able to get the drop on you and steal your loot. To keep keep your money safe, you'll need to call in a deposit helicopter, and this is where another borrowed element comes in. At this point, the game pretty much turns into the Division 2's Dark Zone, because the game tells everyone else the helicopter is incoming, so you'll need to hold the extraction zone and deposit your cash without getting shot. So basically the opposite of what happens to this guy here. Sorry, buddy. Successfully stow your loot on the chopper, and now all you'll need to worry about is finding more cash, because all of your previous funds are now in the bank and you won't lose it if you die. This mode then mixes looting, shooting and tension in a really interesting way, and as such, it's a great addition to Warzone. Just a short one, this one, but the potential for hilarious mishaps in Warzone is incredibly high, as demonstrated by the accidental but almost perfect comedy timing in this clip.
Not down there.
I jumped out, fuck! Oh my god!
Sorry again, Wes and Emma. Ooh. What is that smell? Okay, on to my negatives. They say size isn't everything, and while the huge Verdansk map is incredibly impressive, especially with all the variation in building and terrain types, for me the map and player count is so large that sometimes it doesn't feel like a battle royale at all. Depending on where you land, there can be extended periods where absolutely nothing happens. The matches here last way longer than a lot of other Battle Royale games, and in order to get through to the end, there will often be times when you're fully kitted up, so you don't need to loot, and you have nothing to do but just kind of stand around and twiddle your thumbs. I mean, sure, you could go and look for a fight to spice things up a bit, I guess, but I'm not going to do that because I'm a coward. Now, I have a feeling this is something that could be rectified later down the line with some balances made to the speed of the circle, but at the moment there are periods where the tension is replaced with boredom, and you don't really want that, as then it's easy to take your eyes off the ball and potentially make a mistake. And by mistake, I mean get shot in the face because you're too busy checking Twitter in a quiet moment than scanning the horizon.
Battle Royale.
I mentioned the Apex Legends style Jumpmaster mechanic in an earlier point as a positive, but there's also a negative here because even though one person is set as the leader, everyone can just drop separately anyway whenever they want, and they often do, especially if you're playing with randos. It's kind of like they started to add in Apex Legends teamwork aspects, but then forgot to include the bit where you all jump as a unit on one person's command. So, what's the actual point of it then?
Gas is inbound.
This won't be too much of an issue once everyone has found their feet with the game, but while we're all learning the map, having your friends scattered to the wind can be very confusing and potentially rather fatal.
Bounty target has been marked. Kill him.
This next negative point doesn't bother me too much because I'm currently taking advantage of it, but some people are rightly complaining about how if you down someone and your teammate kills them, your teammate gets credited with the kill. Kind of like exactly what I do to my teammate here.
Bounty target is down. Well done.
Whoops, sorry not sorry. Those who played it will know that this was also the case in Call of Duty's other Battle Royale mode, Blackout, though, so chances are this won't get patched out. But just in case it doesn't, you better get killing those downed opponents quickly, because if you don't, you can be sure I will.
X-ray down.
And that's all from me. Hope you've enjoyed hearing my thoughts on Warzone. Overall, I'm really enjoying it so far. I love how epic the longer matches can feel, even when they're punctuated with quiet moments every so often. And because of this, I'm itching to get back into it. So I'm going to leave you with these words of wisdom. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and check out some of these other videos what are on screen now. Oh my god, wait a minute, is that toxic gas? Oh no.